Welcome to another edition of Hucks on Pucks. I'm Kyle Huckins, and we're going to talk the Northwest Division this time. Well, going to begin at the bottom, work my way up. My apologies to the people of Alberta, because it's going to be a tough slog for you guys again. Number 5, I have the Calgary Flames. Not because I think the Oilers are going to make drastic improvements, although I do think they will be better than they were last year. But I really don't think the Flames are going to be any good. I really don't. To me, they have the same problem as the Stars. They keep making moves for veterans, even though they haven't made the playoffs in years. You know, they think they're in contention, and they're not. Now, granted, they've been a pretty good defensive team the past few years, and most of their problem has been offense. They did bolster the offense. You know, they picked up Mike Camilleri late last season. They added Yuri Hudler from the Red Wings. Gave him a crazy deal. It was like 4 years, $16 million. I don't know, considering I don't think Hudler was in the top 6 in Detroit. I mean, you could say, yes, he put up numbers while not getting all the ice time. But he also wasn't getting a lot of defensive attention. You know, he wasn't facing the top checkers. That may change this year. He's going to be facing better defense pairs, better defensive forwards. That said, the top line's okay. You've got Alex Tanguay on the left, who's a really good playmaker. Roman Cervenka at center. As has been the case, really, since the Joe Nieuwendyk trade, Calgary's got nothing at center. It's... oh, yeah. This is one of the main reasons the Flames have basically wasted the Hall of Fame career of Jarome Iginla. Because, seriously, it's a black hole down the middle in Calgary this year, as it has been, I'd say, since they traded Joe Nieuwendyk to get Iginla. Yeah, I'd say it's been that bad. As for Iginla, he comes back once again. And obviously he's the guy to watch in Calgary. Because he does it all. He can skate, he's physical, he's got great hands, does not mind throwing down if he has to. No, he's definitely one of those guys that just, what do you want me to do? I'll do it. Fairly certain if Bob Hartley asked him to play goal, he wouldn't hesitate to throw on the pads. I don't think he'd do very well, but... well, then again, he has shown he's pretty good at just about everything. Other than finding a center. Yeah. And speaking of centers, they lost Olli Jokinen to Winnipeg. Not a great player, but he can put up some offense. And this is a team that has been starving for offense. Second line, Michael Backlund at center. But you got Lee Stempniak, who's unpredictable. Sometimes he's a very good player. Sometimes he's a black hole. He's very hard to predict. On the other side, you got Mike Camilleri. You know what you've got with Mike Camilleri. He'll be fine in Calgary. Especially after the debacle of a season in Montreal last year. It led to him being traded during a game he was playing in. Just, bad year for Mike Camilleri. Lower lines, yeah, not a whole lot there. Like I said, I'm thinking Hudler might be on one of the lower lines like he was in Detroit, but he's going to be expected to carry a lot more of the offensive load here than he was in Detroit. I don't know that he's up to it. The defense. This is where it gets ugly. Because from a defensive standpoint, they're not terrible. A few years ago, they got Jay Bouwmeester from Florida. And he's turned into a solid defensive defenseman. And an offensive black hole when he was expected to produce some points from back there. In order to remedy this, they signed Dennis Weidman to a 5-year contract. In spite of presumably having seen Dennis Weidman play. Because he's not very good. You know, he can score a little bit, but he's terrible on his own end. And he's one of those guys, if you can put him in the right situation, he's okay, but he just got a 5-year, $25 million deal. He's going to be seeing top pair minutes. Dennis Weidman on your top pair is just not a good sign. So I'm really not psyched about their defense. That they've, like Toronto, they've put a lot of money into that defense. And they've gotten not a lot of production for it. Goal? Well, you've got Miikka Kiprusoff. And Kipper's been on a downhill slide, really. He's still a lot better than a good chunk of the league. But he's not as good as he used to be. And I don't know that he's going to be good enough to erase the mistakes that the defense will make. Well, not all of them anyway. And to compensate, and he's got to be almost perfect to compensate for the fact that they really don't score. Behind him, you've got Henrik Karlsson again, who's probably going to play like 5 games. Oh yeah, Calgary's a veteran team that isn't very good, but keeps adding more veterans, thinking that it's in position to make a run. It's going to be a rough time in Calgary this year. They're not going to be the worst team in the West, but they're not going to be good. Now let's head to number 4. Things are looking considerably brighter for the other Alberta team, the Edmonton Oilers, with yet another first overall pick in Nail Yakupov. Re-signed Taylor Hall to a 6-year deal, which I don't quite get because, let's not kid ourselves, he's been hurt a lot. That may end up not being a very good deal for them. Again, we'll see. But anyway, they've got Hall, they've got Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Jordan Eberle, Alish, plenty of talent up front. You even got Sam Gagner. was proven to be decent. I mean, granted, his stats were highly inflated by that one game against Chicago where he just destroyed them single-handedly. But up front, Edmonton's a very good team. You know, they're going to score their goals. You know, Ryan Smith will, when he can play, he can still pot a few. But Sean Horkoff is probably the league's best paid third line center at this point. Because he signed that deal after the finals and just went off a cliff. But yeah, scoring goals isn't going to be a problem in Edmonton. Keeping them out. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Defense, it's young and unpredictable. Now you have Ryan Whitney, who's actually had a great start to last season, but then he got hurt, and got hurt early in the season. I don't believe he came back, but he could produce at both ends of the ice. You know, he's going to be their best defenseman. Got young Justin Schultz, who they're depending on to develop into something. It's good because that blue line needs all the help it can get. Right now, one of their best defenders is Rangers cast-off Corey Potter. Corey Potter's in the NHL because there's 30 teams. That's the only way to put it. He's just not very good. And previous coach Tom Rennie fell in love with him. And when you're not a good player, but Tom Rennie loves you, you aren't going to play a lot. Found that one out the hard way. It's like watching Ryan Holway get 15 minutes a game. Oh, God. I'm sorry. I need a drink just thinking about that. Sorry, just something I gotta check out because I just don't remember things very well. Rennie is out as coach. He's replaced by his former assistant, Ralph Kruger. It's really his first head coaching gig, so hard to talk about what you can expect from him. Especially because I do try to follow the league as much as I can, but I really don't get to see Edmonton a whole lot. Finally, we're going to get to the goaltending. Yeah. Nikolai Hobby-Bolin just isn't going to cut it as the starter anymore. And Edmonton knew that. So they signed Devin Dubnyk to a 3-year deal in spite of a very thin resume. Don't get me wrong, he may yet turn out to be the goalie they're looking for. But Edmonton's giving out a lot of big contracts based on what they think will happen. I don't think they're playing it very wisely at all. And as for Dubnyk, he's had good moments. But this is going to be his first season with the full workload. And behind that defense, and on an offensively oriented team, I'm expecting him to face quite a few chances. I really don't know how many of them he's going to stop. Yeah, I'm not crazy about the Oilers' chances to make the playoffs this year, but I think they'll be an exciting young team. You know, they'll be fun to watch. But I think they're probably going to end up losing a lot of 5-4 games. I really want to see Oilers Ducks games. Those are going to be fun. Going to be very wide open, back and forth. Teams trading chances. Those are going to be fun. Hey. Coming in third, I've got the Colorado Avalanche with perpetually about to be fired Joe Sacco behind the bench. Got to the playoffs his first year, has been back a couple of years since. However, they're a very young team, especially up front. But they definitely have a good crop of young forwards. You know, Gabriel Landeskog, his rookie year, didn't win the Calder. Came damn close, though. You know, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins just beat him out for it. But he'll be... You know, he should definitely be improved over his first year. Here. Down the middle, if they can get Ryan O'Reilly signed, they're in very good shape. You can have him, Matt Duchene, Paul Stastny. And on the fourth line, you're going to have former Ranger John Mitchell, who's not very good. I know I could talk about him a bit at length because I got to see him play a lot last year. And he's got the balance of a drunk with vertigo. Seriously, I swear to God, every time I saw him on the ice, he was flat on his ass. Not a fan, but you know what? He's a fourth line center. As long as your coach doesn't inexplicably fall in love with him for some reason, you're fine. Big priority is signing O'Reilly. Duchene had a down year, but you know what? The pendulum swings back. You're in good shape. Very talented forward. He's done it before. We know he can score. Alright, left wing. They're pretty good on left wing. I mean, Landeskog's your top left wing. Milan Hajduk. Apparently his hands just don't get old. I'm not sure how that is, but he's still proven he can find the back of the net. Not as much as he used to, but he can do it. Now the right wing. Right wing is where they made their big move in the offseason, getting a P.A. Parento from the Islanders. And I know a lot of people think Parento's totals were inflated by playing with Tavares and Molson. He didn't play with Tavares and Molson a lot. He was actually on the second line most of the year. I mean, yeah, he got put with them in certain situations, but for the most part, he was on the second line with Kyle Oposo. And Oposo had 24 goals last year, so I like the Parento signing. Yeah. And also, their big problem was scoring goals. We'll bring in Parento, Duchene bounces back. They'll score plenty of goals. You know, they won't be one of the greatest offenses, but they should be good enough to compete for a low playoff spot. The defense is pretty solid. It's led by former Blues #1 pick Eric Johnson, who's had a kind of a rough start to his career, but he's shown he can definitely get the job done. He's had flashes of brilliance. And from there, it's a little nondescript, but honestly, they've got Ryan O'Byrne and Shane O'Brien, who've shown that they can both play. And not just because they're Irish. And O'Byrne's had his moments with Montreal and Colorado. Shane O'Brien can be trusted back there. It's not a great defense, but it's fairly dependable. Goaltending. No, J.S. Shiger, yeah, he's not the guy who won the cup with the Ducks. He's lost a step since then. But he's still a serviceable, as a backup, even occasional starter. And I think Semyon Varlamov, while the Avalanche still gave up way too much to get him, I think he's shown he's an NHL goalie. So, I think the Avalanche are going to be okay. I still don't think they're going to be good enough to make the playoffs. But the pieces are in place for them to at least contend for that lower spot. I mean, who knows? If Duchesne has a breakout year, could definitely happen. He's probably the guy to watch on the team. But yeah, I'd look for them to finish third. Probably out of the money. But they should be fun to watch. They could potentially get in there. Second place, I'm going to have the Minnesota Wild. I know a lot of people are in love with them because they did sign Ryan Suter and Zach Parise to those gigantic deals. And there's no reason not to love them for that. They got two very good players, didn't have to give up anything other than cash. But I'm usually wary of a team that wasn't that good making a big splash in free agency and expecting to be great. I probably should pick them lower for this. But I do feel that Parise and Suter did address the Wild's biggest need, offense. Because this team's really had a lot of trouble scoring, especially since Marian Gaborik signed with the Rangers. They've always been tight defensively. They've always had good goaltending. Just, they've always had trouble scoring. Now, it's Suter from the back end, Parise in the front. That sounded weird. His team should definitely score some more goals. And Parise being around, it'll free things up for Mikko Koivu and Danny Heatley. It should even help out Devin Setaguchi on the second line. So I think they'll get more offense from up front. On the blue line, you've got Ryan Suter. He can definitely run the power play. He'll give you the offense. And he's a great defenseman to boot. Figure him and Tom Gilbert will probably be running the power play. That's a pretty competent offensive pair there. Beyond that, it's a little nondescript back there. But I don't feel like they're going to be disastrously bad at all. They've been a solid defensive team for years now. I'm not going to worry about them. Last line of defense, Nick Backstrom and Josh Harding. Harding's gotten a lot of talk around the league that Harding could start for various teams. He's even had stretches where he's had to start for the Wild, and he's played fine. Nick Backstrom's got a couple of I believe he's got a couple of All-Star games under his belt. Now his numbers have shown that he can definitely carry the load. So I don't think Parise is going to be as great as most of Minnesota's hoping he is. But I think he should do enough about their offensive woes. They'll probably make the playoffs. I don't think they'll win the division. I don't think they're a threat to go deep. I think they're still a couple pieces shy. But adding him and Suter, I can't knock those moves. They were probably the two best guys free agency this year, and they got them both. So yeah, I'm definitely looking for the play. I'll look for them to make the playoffs. I don't think they're contenders yet by any stretch, but that leads me to who I think are going to win. Number one, the Vancouver Canucks. Hey, they're still the Canucks. They've still got a great set of forwards. You've got that top line with the Sedins and Alex Burrows. Much as I hate the little bastard, he is a good player. And the Sedins are just eerie. If you haven't seen it by now, you got to see the. There's one just brief shot. It's a brief bit of footage of them on the bench, and their heads are moving the same way, and they look like looks like a mirror. It's kind of unsettling. But that top line is going to be good. Ryan Kessler centering your second line. He had a down season. He's been injured. And he's got David Booth with him, who had injury problems stemming back to Mike Richards nearly decapitating him when he was a Panther. But, they should regain their form. And that gives them two good lines right there. Down the middle, they're in very good shape with Sedin, Kessler, Malhotra, and Max Lapierre. Lapierre has shown he's got some offense to his game. A very grating guy to play against. Also, the only guy I've ever seen get called for 3 diving penalties in one game, back when he was a Canadian. Yeah, he got called. He got an unsportsmanlike conduct hat trick. I don't even know how you do that. Up front, they're very solid. They should be in good shape on the blue line, being led by Kevin Bieksa and Alex Edler. They also added Jason Garrison to the Florida Panthers, who had a big year last year. Of course, I think I gave him like a 6-year deal. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be the Ville Leno deal of the year, where it just, that was a flash in the pan, wasn't it? Oh boy. Yeah, I'm thinking that's not a very good contract. And can't really talk about Vancouver without talking about the goaltending situation, because that one's a little odd. They've publicly admitted that Corey Schneider's their starter, and that they've given up on Roberto Luongo. But as of this viewing, Roberto Luongo is still on the Vancouver Canucks. So that's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. Do they just send Luongo home for the year so he doesn't get injured, so they can use an amnesty buyout on him? Do they keep him around? Or does somebody actually pony up to trade for him? A lot of people thought the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to be in the market for him. Turns out they're not. It turns out they weren't, but Toronto just fired Brian Burke and brought in Dave Nonis, the man who brought Luongo to Vancouver. Don't really like how Vancouver's handled this whole goaltending situation. especially last year, because they weren't losing to the Kings because Luongo was playing badly. They got flat out beat by the Kings. You know, it's not like they were playing them evenly and Luongo was just letting in softball after softball. No. No, they pulled him after 2 games. Corey Schneider lost the other 2. Now, everyone thinks Corey Schneider is starting material, and he's looked good in the stretches he's been in there. But you still have to call his resume incomplete. You know, he's got some he's never won a playoff series. And now, do you get a lot of pressure because he's goalie in a Canadian city? Also, Alain Vigneault seems a little panicky with his goalies. So, I don't know. Not really sure how things are going to shake out there. Because apparently they're going to bring in Eddie Lack to be the backup. He's played in the AHL for them, and he's played very well down there. But they signed Luongo to a ridiculous contract, willing to bail on him, and then they signed Schneider to a pretty sizable deal. Is Vigneault going to pull a Peter Laviolette, panic, and just go with Lack? Who knows? So I think the net situation is going to be a little weird. But that said, I still think they're far and away the best team in the West. And any issues they have back there are going to be overcome by the fact that they can still score in bunches. Anyway, that's my Northwest Division preview. Stay tuned next time. We're going to do the Central. This is Kyle Huckins for Hooks on Pucks.